Hey guys, hi, welcome back once again. And this time, I once again wish to take up yet another quote and have a look at it from a different perspective. So, the quote goes something like this, that our thoughts create our reality, which I believe to an extent is true, but I would also like to add that our thoughts and our feelings together or separately create our reality. And again, I would also like to add that, however true that may be to some extent, it is also a very autonomous way of thinking, which is primarily saying that I am an autonomous being and I am completely in control of my faculties and my realities, and I create my own reality. However, I wish to even see it from a different perspective and bring forth the same before you. So, and you all can kindly share your views and thoughts and feelings about the same. I also think that our reality also shapes our thoughts and our feelings, and that further creates another reality altogether. So, I would like to share a story with regards to this, and then a few, link up a few real life people who have created a different reality or who are living a different reality, which creates a different thought process and feelings, and which further creates a different reality in their culture, in their society. So, so there, I had happened to read the story when I must have been in my preteens, and the story went something like this: that there was this young man who had happened to stumble upon a village, had happened to come across a village wherein every single person was blind, and this village was located in a remote place in a valley. And when he happens to come down to the valley, he suddenly sees that every single house is painted with different color, and not only every single house is painted with different color, in fact even the walls, every single wall is painted with a different color. So it's like every house was a rainbow in itself, or beyond the colors of rainbow as well. And he's quite surprised and interested in staying there. And as he stays there, he gradually falls in love with a girl who is very beautiful, and but she's blind. And as days go by, he kind of expresses his feelings towards her, and he tells her that he would uh, want to marry her and that he wishes to marry her. And he even tells her that he finds her to be very beautiful, and he would love to have her as his life partner. And this girl is quite wary of him, because firstly she feels that he is flattering her, because she doesn't consider herself to be beautiful. Now, in their village, beauty is associated with chubbiness, with a little roundedness, with a little plumpness. Because people can't see, they associate beauty with somebody in their exterior also being soft and plump and full. So that is their idea of beauty, whereas this girl is almost a model like person, like how we see on the ramps. And she's tall, she has high cheekbones, she is very graceful, she's full figured, yet she's lean. And somewhere, in her community where nobody can see, she is not considered to be a beauty. In fact, she's quite the opposite of beauty, because she is not plump and she's not round and she's not soft. So she finds it hard to believe, and she finds it hard to trust him. But he convinces her nonetheless, and then he talks to her parents, and the parents agree to their marriage. And after their marriage, he takes her to the city, and he gets her eyes operated. Now, it is for the first time that she sees the sunrise and the sunset and the different colors and the different shades of different colors, and she's not aware of any of those things. She's not aware of the color of the leaves. She's not aware of the colors of the sunset and the sunrise and the twilights. She has never seen the star before. She has never seen the moon before. So the entire world opens up before her in a very different way, and she's learning a new vocabulary. She's understanding things from a different perspective. And then she begins to understand that in their world, or in his world, beauty is very different from what it was in her world. So her reality, or her thought and her feelings, had been shaped by her reality of where she had lived for so long. And then suddenly there was this shift, there was this transformation. And again, so I would like to say that as much as our thoughts and our feelings create our reality, it is also our reality that shapes us, that creates our thoughts and our feelings, and further creates another reality for us. Likewise, if you take the example of people living in North Korea under a certain dictatorial rule, their perception of reality, or their reality, is very different from our reality. And I had happened to see a few videos and hear a few conversations and talks by this activist who has fled from North Korea and is now residing in the US, and her name is Yeonmi Park. And she goes on to say, after hearing a few videos and after hearing lengthy conversations, I was astounded to hear that people in North Korea, or at least she as the person, or as an ex-resident of North Korea, had no idea what freedom meant, what love meant, what compassion meant. Because for them, love is the only form of love that they experience over there is obedience. It is bowing down your head and not questioning anything. It is not using your brains to think for yourselves, but complete adherence to authority that is categorized and labeled as love. And anything or any person who questions that authoritarian regime, or any way of functioning which is outside of what they are conditioned to, is not considered as love, but is considered as sheer disobedience and sheer disrespect. And since people are not allowed to think, and since people fear to think, there is a certain sense of fear even in taking up a certain responsibility. Because after hearing her videos, you come to understand that freedom comes with responsibilities, and most of the times, most of us are not willing to take up those responsibilities. But over here, she goes on to say that when I stepped out of North Korea, freedom was fearful because it meant that I was responsible for my own actions. Whereas living over there, keeping your head bowed down and just being obedient to certain authoritarian regime without questioning, it was probably an easier way to live, because we are not thinking. You're just doing what you are supposed to do and you've been told to do. And probably that's an easier way to live, but probably that's not your way to live. So after having fled from that regime, she found it difficult to understand what responsibility was. She found it difficult to understand what compassion was, because in a society wherein compassion is not the normal norm, you fail to empathize with people. So it was very difficult for her in the beginning to see people hurt and people helping out people who were hurt, and at least unknown people helping out people who were hurt. And those were things that she had to deal with. And she goes on to say that we have to be taught what freedom is all about, because most people are not aware of it. We have to be taught what compassion, we have to teach people what compassion is, what empathy is, what love is beyond obedience, and that it's quite normal and it's okay to question, and that it's okay to use your own heads and use your own brains. So that was her reality. And most people living in that regime, it is their reality. It creates their thought process, it creates their own feelings, and it creates a different reality for them. And today she is almost labeled as a Satan, because for them their God is different, and she is going against the God and talking about him. So that is another reality for her, and that is another reality for people who are living there. In the same breath, if we talk about, the Bacha Posh of Afghanistan, the girls who embody boyhood, in the sense that they start dressing up, they start behaving, they start talking, they start walking, they start behaving as boys and men, because in their culture or in that particular society, boys are more privileged and men have more privileges and more freedom than their women counterparts. And it's easier to live as a boy than as a girl or as a woman. So they abandon the gender that they are born with. They completely shun it aside for the longest part in their lives. And that is their reality. And yet, on the other hand, there is this man whose name is Mauro Morandi. And he is an Italian man who had happened to, stumble upon this island Budelli. Yeah, Budelli in Italy. And for the past 29 years, he has been living alone on that island. He has generated his own crops, and he has generated his own electricity, and he does cultivate, his own edible stuff. And for the past 29 years, he has never ever fallen sick, despite even the cold winters that he experiences. And he's one person who goes on to say that I know what cold and cough is, and I know what sneezing is, because I had lived in the human civilization, in the human society before, so I'm aware of those things. But for the past 29 years, 30 years, I have never once fallen sick. I have not experienced sneezing as a symptom. And that is another reality. So as much as our thoughts and our feelings create our reality, I think it is equally important to understand that our reality also creates our thoughts and our feelings, which further create another reality. And life is not a one-way road. It's a two-way road, or it's a multifold, multi-way road. We don't live in an autonomous system. We live in an interconnected system where we are impacted and influenced by people around us, where we are impacted by our outside reality. So I think it is equally important to understand this integratedness, this interconnectedness. Because if we are living in a society that is interdependent, wherein we are social creatures and wherein we need each other most of the times, for our survival or for our thrival, either ways or both ways at the same time. I think it is equally important to understand that we cannot only live through our own thoughts and our own feelings. We've got to understand that it all combines and connects and moves together. And that is the only way to understand the holistic view of life through the holes in our lives. And as long as we are able to have an understanding of this interconnectedness, I think we'll understand the beauty of our own selves, the beauty of our lives, and I think it also somewhere helps us align to our own values, personal values or collective values. So let's try and see life in completion, life in interconnectedness, and not in separate compartments, because that is not how life functions and that is not how we live our lives. So let's try and do that more often, and I will see you once again next week. Till then, stay connected.